So there was a long period when no one was sending missions to the moon, and there was no discussion at all of a return to crewed missions to the moon. And suddenly in the last few years, we have this incredible amount of interest, talk of establishing a lunar settlement, pushing on to Mars. One of the factors I think in this is national prestige, but also the growth of the commercial sector. While many would argue that there are ambiguities in the treaty which do mean that it's a little bit unclear about who has the right to use resources, my opinion is it's a lack of political will. I think it suits various nations at the moment to pretend that this is unambiguous. The US is committed to the principles of the Outer Space Treaty, although they do very explicitly reject the idea that space is the common province of humanity or the common heritage of humanity. We're gradually seeing a shift towards agreements between individual countries that rule out that global kind of multilateral behaviour. And it is my belief that the United States, while it is undertaking this with the interests of getting humanity further in space, is also doing it to their advantage.
The first and foremost reason why we go to the moon, back to the moon, either robotically or with humans, is the science. It's to understand the solar system. We have to test the ways to stay in deep space for very long. If we have the intention, for example, to reach Mars in a couple of decades, we need first to show that we can stay for longer durations in deep space. That if by doing this, we see that we should be using, for example, resources there for this intermediate step, then it's okay. Then we have a justification. It's not just exploiting for exploiting. What I'm saying here is very simple. We do it for a scientific reason and for exploration, not exploitation, which means that we could use the resources to go further. And that could be interesting.
You think back to the Apollo era, huge amounts of money were spent on getting people to the moon. And this was for scientific purposes as well as political purposes. But we live in a different world these days, and there's a lot less support for committing huge parts of national GDPs to getting into space. So there's definitely a role for commercial players in this. A lot of people aren't aware, though, that some of these commercial players are supported by government contracts.
NASA has said that they are ready to buy lunar regolith, which means that commercial companies can, go to the moon, land, bring back samples, and NASA will buy it. So they promote and they push for commercial companies to do these kind of things. We will need 5-10 years to have a much better idea on what's going on and where the resources are, how they can be extracted. And then we would probably need another decade if there is a possibility to do it, to put in place, the programs to use the resources. So I'm not sure that the race is really about resources. Honestly, there is another race which is more political and strategic.
A lot of this is aspirational. A lot of this is about a particular story that is being told that does not reflect the level of technology that we're at. But if you take the Cold War as an example, a lot of space activity in the Cold War was driven by social, political, and ideological reasons. And I think we're actually seeing a period that is very similar, except it's commercial interests that are driving those reasons. There's a whole raft of ethical questions that remain unaddressed in most of the plans to return to the moon. The moon is kind of regarded as a dead world. There's nothing there we need to be worried about. I think we have to take each planetary environment or celestial environment on its own terms and consider what values it has and what rights it has to exist in its own way of being.